I was helping a butcher to sell his meat. And sometimes he would cut smaller pieces of the meat, put them on a plate for me, and I'll carry this meat to go and sell in the market to women who can't afford to buy, say, 1 pound of meat or 2 kilos of meat. They want to buy just a few pieces to go and prepare.
You could ask your age again butcher, at this time.
Well, so I was around 17, 83, 84, so 16, 17, thereabout. I would go to the market and he would put the meat on the plate for me and I would carry it around in the market to sell. And then I moved on. From there, a friend got a job for me in a factory where they made roofing tiles from clay. So my job was to mix the clay with water, use a machine to mix them. There is a mixer. After mixing the clay, with shovels, you have to collect them and pour them in the mixing machine. And then the mixing machine makes them smoother and pumps them out. And then you take them in molds and make them dry a little bit. And then you use your hand to knead them. After kneading the clay, you use a pattern to mold the clay into the shape of the roofing tile. And then they are kept to dry. After they are dry, they put them in the kiln and then they fire them and they come out as this red brick for roofing. Yeah. And I worked in a factory like that. And then along the line, somebody told me, look, you need a better job. I know a diplomat who works for the US Embassy, and he's looking for a garden boy, a gardener. And I said, yes, this is something I could do. It wasn't a very well-paid job, though, but it was better than what I used to do. So I took the offer and went to work in the house of the American diplomat as a gardener for some time. And in between, I got the chance to go and learn how to fix radio and TV. So I was taken to a radio and TV mechanic to learn the trade of fixing radio and TV. I was supposed to do that apprenticeship for, I think, is it 2 or 3 years? But after 1 year, I got frustrated because the man who was training me wasn't so committed to the job, and I decided to leave. But finding a job or moving to another mechanic to learn wasn't easy because I needed to pay apprenticeship fee. I couldn't afford that at that time. So I then started going around and helping people in their homes. If you are my friend and I know you and we belong to the same group, say a religious group, organization, I could come to your house and weed your compound for you for maybe a meal or something. And often they would give me money for transport. I didn't want to get myself into any kind of trouble. I mean, knowing my background, where I was coming from, if I was to run into trouble at that time, there was no one to help me. So I would rather want to find something to do with my hands and earn a living. And that's what I did. So subsequently, I got myself doing all kinds of odd jobs along the line to survive. But I had a love for words. So while I was doing all these things, I was reading a lot. I read a lot. I would always carry a book wherever I was.
What you was reading for? Literature, poetry,
I would read any
economics?
book. I would read any book at all I find. Fiction, religious book, newspaper, magazine. I just love to read. So I would read anything I find. And so I kept reading. And at a point in 1985, I decided to attempt writing poems. So I started writing poems all by myself with my middle school background. And then when it's a friend's birthday, I would write a poem for them. And they loved it, you know. And so that kind of encouraged me to do more. And I kept writing. And then I'll write for secondary schools. I have friends who then were in secondary schools. And when they have events at school, they would come to me to say, can you write a poem for me? and I'll write poems for them. And then they go and perform the poem and people love it. So I get encouraged. I kept on and kept on until I was able to write quite a sizable amount of poems. I had a file full of poems. That was in around 1987, 88, thereabout. And I kept doing menial jobs to survive, do this, do that, help people around, somebody will send you there. And I belonged to a religious group a church where, because I wasn't fully employed, when they need people to go around and distribute letters, I will always be among the people to do that. And I was quite active, so that kept me busy and away from trouble. Until in 1990, thereabouts, a new magazine came to Ghana called Step. They used to be published in Kenya. So they had Step Kenya, and then they decided to have a Ghana version. So they had Step Ghana. The editor who started who started Step Ghana is called Lawrence Darmani, an incredibly great writer, a very, very dedicated writer. He's written a lot of books and has trained a lot of journalists and writers in Ghana and across Africa. When I had the number of poems and was looking for a publisher, I didn't have an idea where to find a publisher at that time. And I got the very first copy of Step magazine published in Ghana. And there was an advert of a publisher who was calling for manuscripts. So I decided to go look for this publisher with my file of poems. The man is called Kweku Howard. I went to his office and I said, "Sir, I have this manuscript of poems. Are you interested in publishing them?" And then he looked at the poems and said to me, "Oh, these are interesting poems, but I don't publish poems. I'm looking for manuscripts for children's books. But you know what? I will show you Step magazine. You should go to Step. They publish poems occasionally. Maybe they will be interested in your poem." So he showed me where Step magazine was, and I walked. It was quite a distance, but I walked from this man's office, and this was at Accra Newtown, to Step magazine's office, which is also located within the same environment, but bit of a distance. I went to Step magazine, and I said to them, I have some poems here. Are you interested?" And the editor said, you can leave some of your poems here and I'll take a look at them. So I left some of my poems with him. And later, when I went to him, he said to me, "Look, Emmanuel, I have looked at your poems and I think there is something about your poems that I like. They are very good and they're interesting. So I'm going to publish some for you." And they were preparing the very next issue of the magazine. So they selected one of my poems and they published it. And they paid me for it. And I was like, whoa, so I could be paid for writing. I didn't know that.
How much they paid you?
That was a long time ago, but I think it was something like 2 cedis.
Yes.
It's not a lot of money. That was
but
about 30 years ago.
At this time, it was the money.
It was a lot of money. And again, for me to be paid for an intellectual work at that time was quite, it was exciting.
Yes.
So I went to him one day and I asked him, do you have vacancy here for a messenger? And then he said, no, they didn't need a messenger. Then I asked him, do you need a cleaner? He said, no, we don't need a cleaner. And I said, well, don't you have anything for me to do? And then he said, young man, you come around and visit us. If we need anything, we will let you do for us. So after that, I would go to Step Magazine's office. And then when they need water, I will go and get it for them. When they need food, I will go out there and get the food for them. They need office materials, they would send me. I probably suspected that he was studying me to see if I was somebody who would be useful to them. And well, for someone like me, when I commit myself to something, I try as hard as possible to be consistent, as it were. So I would go to the office and they would ask me to do stuff. And then one day he told me, "Look, Emmanuel, we organize regular monthly writers workshop. Are you interested? I would like you to come and attend the writers workshop. I think with your skill, you could learn something." And I said, "Yes, why not?" So I attended the Step Magazine Writers Workshop in Accra. I remember very well that day there were 12 of us who attended the workshop. They taught us how to write stories, you know, what is a lead, how to interest your readers, how to keep your readers in suspense, your choice of words, how to use proper grammar and stuff like that. So that was quite my very first formal training in writing. I never had any kind of writing. And as at that time, I've never done any full detailed story writing. And then after the workshop, we were all giving assignments to do. And it turned out I was the only one who did my assignment and submitted it. So I kept following up on my story. You know, I wanted to get feedback. Is it okay? Is it good? Can I rewrite it? Do I have to do more? And then one day when I went to the office, Mr. Darmani called me and said, "Emmanuel, I want to ask you something." I said, "Yes." "Do you want to take writing as a career?" In fact, I didn't wait for him to finish. I said, "Yes." And then he said, "No, go and think and pray about it." I said, "My mind is made up. I want to be a writer." So I started going to the office. And then one day he asked me something. "Emmanuel, can you do proofreading?" I must say, honestly, as at that time, I didn't know what proofreading was, but I heard reading. So I said, yes, I could do it. They were preparing the next issue of the magazine. So he gave me the proof, and I sat in the corner in the office. They gave me a desk, and I was reading through, and then I started finding errors, typographical errors.
Yes.
When I see what I think is a grammatical error, then I'll go to him to say, "What do you think? Should this be this, or it could be better, or that way?" And I think he realized that I was eager to learn and I had something in me that could be nurtured. It went on and on and on. And then he offered me the opportunity and said I should be an editorial intern for 6 months in Step magazine. So I became Step magazine's first editorial intern. They took me on and they put me on an allowance. I think it was 18 cedis at that time for a month.
18.6.
18 cedis. 18 cedis.
18 cedis.
Yes. It wasn't a lot of money, but for somebody who has never worked in the formal sector, that was a lot of money for me. And again, I had the opportunity to learn in a very, very conducive environment because all the staff of Step at that time, the secretary, the graphic artist, the marketing officer, and there was Lawrence Darmani himself, who was and still is the managing editor. And there was this lady called Rita, who was the assistant editor. They all were writers. So it was kind of a team of writers, from the secretary to the graphic designer to the marketing officer. Everybody wrote. They all could write, and they wrote very well. So I found myself in this team of writers. So the motivation then was higher, and the environment for growing up was equally good. So he said I was going to do the editorial training for 6 months, and I kept at it.
Yes.
You know, I helped with the magazine production. I learned how to do graphic designing. I learned how to do designing and layout of magazines and books and newspapers. I learned how to write. I learned how to edit. I started also taking photographs. So I learned how to take photographs. From there, I learned how to do editing. I learned how to do graphic designing. I got to understand how to do printing, how to prepare from production level of, typesetting, designing, finalizing print production, going through the film process, preparing the film and the printing place, and getting to the printer and running copies and binding and trimming. I got to know where to buy paper for printing, where to buy cards, where to go and trim papers, where to go and do binding, and so on. So I got to know a lot of things as a result of my being with Step Magazine. After the 6 months, Step Magazine felt that I was quite useful to the organization, so they extended it to another 1 year. And I stayed with Step Magazine and improved on my writing and learning how to research. I started writing for the magazine, but additionally, I started writing for national newspapers. I started by writing short stories. We have a newspaper in Ghana called The Mirror. I started writing for The Mirror. On Saturdays, I would write for the short story column, and they would publish it. And then I'll write for The Spectator. They also publish poems, and they will publish it. So all these kind of fired me, encouraged me, and motivated me to do more. And my 1 year with Step Magazine became 2 years. Step Magazine kept me for 2 years. While I was there, I was still writing and learning. And I started getting to know people. I started building my networks and all that. After 2 years, Step Magazine was contemplating what to do with me, either to employ me or to let me go. And I remember the then board chairman, one Mr. Richard Crabb, who now works with the World Bank Publication Department, called Lawrence and said, look, you have trained Emmanuel. Emmanuel is good. He writes well. He knows how to run the magazine. He knows how to start from scratch to finish. Why don't you hire him? But then Step Magazine had a problem. They have laid down human resource hiring structures. The basic qualification should be a first degree from the university. And I didn't even have a diploma. So Step Magazine couldn't hire me, even though I was an asset. So Step Magazine had to take the painful decision to let me go. But they just didn't let me go. They arranged with a newspaper called the Christian Messenger newspaper, which was edited by the late GBK Owusu, who, because of my writing in Step, got to know me and grew to like me. And he was a very good friend of Lawrence Darmani. And so they had a conversation, and he told Lawrence, look, you can bring Emmanuel to my newspaper. So Lawrence sent me to Christian Messenger for 6 months internship and decided to continue to pay my stipend, my monthly allowance. So at Christian Messenger, that was where I started learning news reporting. All right, that's where I got into the core of journalism. Step Magazine was a youth magazine, so we did mostly true life stories. So we wrote more in storylines, like you would write in fiction and long form and so on, but not typical news reporting. But with the Christian Messenger, I started going to press conferences. I started covering speeches. And then when there is a press release, Mr. Owusu will give it to me to say, can you make a story out of it? And I'll make a story out of the press statement and so on. And then again, I also was helping them with the layout and design of the newspaper. After 6 months, Mr. Owusu asked me to stay and train his staff. So they gave me a 3 months contract. And I trained the staff of Christian Messenger in how to do newspaper designing. After that, I left and became a freelance. And that was another interesting chapter in my life. And that was in 1993. So while I was with Christian Messenger, there was a training seminar for journalists at the School of Communication Studies at the University of Ghana. It was organized by the Private Newspaper Publishers Association of Ghana, and the Frederick Ebert Foundation sponsored it, and also co-hosted by the University of Ghana School of Communication Studies. And it was, I think, for 7 weeks. So that was equally a very useful training opportunity for me. And then again, I also got to network with journalists like the late Steve Labby, people like George Jordan. I got to meet Cabral Blay Amihia, who was the publisher of the Independent newspaper, who hired me along the line to work for him. I got to meet people like McKay, and a few other of these, old-time journalists, and became friends with them. So that started giving me a grounding within the journalism circle in Ghana. And then after I left Christian Messenger, I was freelancing. I started writing for a newspaper called P&P. Even though they weren't paying frequently, I would still write for them because I needed to keep myself busy. And alongside that writing, I was also doing printing because my experience at Step Magazine taught me how to do print production. So I could design logos for people. I started doing complimentary cards. I started doing designing books for people. I would design posters and banners for people. I would design receipt books for companies as a handyman kind of thing each time that comes. And gradually, I learned to survive by writing and also doing some of these things. At that point, I said to myself, okay, now I can write. What next? I can't get employment because I don't have educational qualification. I would see adverts in the newspapers saying, we want a reporter, and then the basic qualification is diploma, Ghana Institute of Journalism, or bachelor's degree, University of Ghana, and I didn't have it. So I said to myself, well, then it's time to get some formal education. But how was I going to do that? I was only a middle school leaver. I have not gone to secondary school, so I could not go to university. But then if I was able to study and get my GC, which was the General Certificate of Education, ordinary and advanced levels, then I could apply to go to university. But how was I going to do that? I needed somewhere to learn. I started learning on my own. It was very difficult. So I found a school where they did what they call remedial classes, classes for people who had failed their secondary school exams and want to resit for the exams. And they were organizing classes for them. I heard about it. I went in there in 1993, and then I registered and went for classes. I registered for 6 months, but I couldn't pay all the 6 months. I was able to attend classes for 3 months. And the other 3 months, I had to stay home. And around this time, I was still doing my handiwork of printing for people and earning a living just to get by. So in 1993, I sat for the first time for the General Certificate of Education ordinary level, and I got 3 credits. I wanted to resit again, but I couldn't afford because I didn't have a regular source of income. I kept at it until in 1994, I got a message that at that time we didn't have mobile phones. I got a message from Step Magazine that they were looking for me. So I went to Step Magazine and they said to me, they needed someone to write the cover story for their magazine. And they had prepared the magazine, they have printed all the inside pages. So they were just waiting for the story for the cover. And I had 3 days deadline, 3 days. And it was a story about the problem of children who sleep on the streets. So yes. A story on street children. So I met the editor and he told me this is what they wanted. I should do the story on street children, and I had 3 days deadline. I took the challenge and hit the road. I started looking for sources. I went to the University of Ghana to talk to sociologists. I looked for a psychologist to talk to. I looked for a headmaster of a school to talk to. I spoke to religious leaders, and I met somebody who worked with street children, and I spoke to him. And he showed me a video he had done of these street children, and that gave me a fair idea of what the children went through. At that time, I wasn't very experienced, so I couldn't go to the streets myself. And I wanted this guy to take me to the street to talk to the children, but he was unable to do so. So I used the video, the information from the video, and I wrote, I think, about 2 stories. And the editor loved the story. He was so impressed that I could deliver the story in 3 days. And then they published the magazine and then, of course, circulated it. In August of that year in 94, I went to the post office and I found a letter in my mailbox. And in that letter, from the Ghana National Commission on Children, was an invitation to me that my article, which I wrote on street children, has been selected for the first prize of the national features on children in Ghana. I was like, whoa. So the letter was inviting me to come to the award ceremony, which was held at the Children's Park here in Accra. I mean, you could imagine my joy and the excitement everybody connected to the story felt.
Yeah.
So 4 years into my practice of journalism, I won the first prize of the Media Features on Children awards given by the Ghana National Commission on Children. And then, of course, the day of the awards, at that time, we only had, I think, Ghana Television, GTV, and Daily Graphic. So the following day, that evening, I was on TV, and everybody was like, "Oh, I know Emmanuel. He's my friend. You know, Emmanuel is my friend. Emmanuel is my friend." And people who meet me will congratulate me. Well done, congrats! I saw you on TV. You were receiving the award. And then the following day, I was in the paper, you know, and everywhere I passed, people were congratulations. So I got motivated and encouraged. But I still can't be employed by any newspaper because I didn't have the academic.
And excuse me,
yes.
How much was the amount of the prize?
Well, so I was giving a 14-inch Samsung TV and a certificate. No money was included.
Oh.
Yes. and that happened to be my very first television. I didn't own a television until then.
Yeah.
And it was such a good TV that I used it, I think, for like 10 years. So that story and that award kind of opened me up to the world. And then not long after, I got a job with the Independent newspaper, which was at that time, one of the very strongest private newspapers in Ghana, considering the military history of Ghana and how much the military suppressed free press in the country. The Independent and the Ghanaian Chronicle, and there was also the Vanguard newspaper, and there was another newspaper too. I've forgotten exactly what the name is, but the publisher was called Mr. Ansa, very popular, very widely known private newspaper publisher. And so these newspapers were good and they were strong. People relied on them very well, heavily. And then I joined the Independent newspaper. But I joined the Independent newspaper not as a reporter. I joined as a graphic designer. So my duty was to design the newspaper for publishing. But of course, because I can write, occasionally I will go on assignment when I can, and then write for the newspaper. And I became the unofficial deputy editor because when the paper is ready for publishing, I will do all the final edits of the scripts to the extent that Cabral, Blay, and me here, who was the publisher and editor, would allow me to publish to edit his column. He used to write a column called Back on the Block. I will edit his column and he will just do his first draft and leave it for me and walk away. And I will edit the column very well and nicely for publication the following day. So I worked with the Independent, I think, for a year or so, and then I had to leave. I left the Independent and was freelancing again for a while. And I said to myself, I think it is high time I try to get some education. So in 1996, I decided to go back and do the O-level again because I needed at least 5 credits. So this time I couldn't go to any school to study. I had to borrow books from my friends, and the ones I can afford, I bought. And I stayed home and I learned on my own. And while I was doing this, I was going out and doing printing, just to get by. And I wrote my O-level again for the second time in 1996, and I got 2 credits. So now I had 5 credits. Now, what to do with it? The next step was to do the advanced level of the GCE, which is popularly known as GCE A-level. Again, I didn't have the financial means to pay for the cost of learning and registration and all that. So one day in 1999, I walked to the University of Ghana and the admissions academic affairs unit, and I asked a gentleman I saw in the office, I have 5 O-level credits. What can I do here at the university? Do you have courses I can study with my 5 O-level credits? He just picked a brochure, handed it to me. He didn't even look at my face. And I said, thank you, and I walked out. And I looked at the brochure. I saw there were courses I could do with my O-level. But even after applying, I had to do a selection exam. And by the way, in between this time, I got engaged by Friends of the Earth. Friends of the Earth is an environmental organization, global, and they have a Ghana office. They were producing a magazine, and there was this British woman called Leslie Saunders, who had come to do her internship with the Independent newspaper on account of seeing my story on Street Children, which won me the award, and felt that because of the quality of the story, the Independent newspaper was the right place for her to come and do her internship. At that time, she was doing a course with a writing school in London, and she needed to do attachment of some kind with a newspaper in Ghana. And she was living here because the husband was working for a construction firm and was representing the company in Africa, in Ghana. So Friends of the Earth needed somebody to design their magazine. And Leslie Saunders recommended me. So I started working for the Friends of the Earth. And that was when I got involved in environmental writing. I would write on forestry, on fishery, I would write on mining, water pollution, air pollution, and so on and so forth. Then, of course, in 99, I went to sit for the exam for admission in the University of Ghana, but not to do the bachelor's degree. I was applying for a sub-degree, what they call a diploma, for 2 years. But I needed to sit for an entrance exam, a selection exam. And the day I went to do the exam, there were more than 500 applicants.
Wow.
And guess how many spaces they had for the department? 30. 30 spaces. And there were more than 500 applicants. So I went and I wrote my exam for a diploma in the study of religions at the Department for the Study of Religions, and was waiting and hoping that I would go through. And one day I went to the mails again to pick my mails, and my admission letter was there. I've been offered an admission to study for a 2-year diploma in the study of religion. So you can imagine my excitement.
Yeah.
So I got the admission. Finding money to pay for my fees itself was difficult, but along the line, I was able to raise the money. I paid for my fees, stayed in the university for 2 years, and graduated with distinction. So I left in 1999 for 2 years to 2002. And in Ghana, when you finish university, you do the national service. And even though I wasn't qualified for national service because I had overgrown the age for national service, I still decided to do it. So I did national service for 1 year, and I did the national service with a religious organization called Torchbearers. They trained and sent missionaries to areas where there are no Christian churches to evangelize and set up churches. So I worked with them as the administrative secretary during my national service, and even donated part of my national service allowance to them every month because they were a charity non-profit organization. After national service in 2003, I decided to go back to university. So I reapplied to do the bachelor's degree. And of course, I earned automatic admission because of my performance in the diploma program. And this time I decided to major in sociology. So I studied at the University of Ghana for my bachelor's degree and graduated, I think, in 2006, 2007, and got my bachelor's degree in sociology. And along the line, I've been writing for newspapers, for magazines, and so on and so forth. So when I finished my studies and came back, I hadn't written for a while. I decided to do a story for the national daily newspaper called the Daily Graphic. And the very first story I did was the story I broke about dumping of e-waste into Ghana. It was a big story. Nobody had heard about e-waste in Ghana until I had written that story. And then after I wrote that story in June, in August, I got employed by the multimedia group of companies that also owned the radio station called Joy FM. And they have a website called My Joy Online. So I was hired to work as a journalist on the website. I edited the story on e-waste and I published it on My Joy Online. And then it went viral globally. And then foreign media started coming into Ghana to follow up on the e-waste story. Of course, I had written more than 60 times on the e-waste story. And that had led to the Ghana government passing a law on managing e-waste in the country. And then, of course, the very first article I wrote on e-waste has been published in the textbook for universities around the world by a publisher in New York City. And of course, subsequently, I kept on writing. After I left Joy in 2007, I worked for just a year. In 2008, I think around June, I joined a radio station called City FM to manage their news website. Unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, I worked there only for 6 months because I had disagreements with management in terms of the kind of how the journalism should be done, what you can write and what you cannot write. I had issues with that. Management was interfering with what journalism I could do. And at that point, I knew that I was a journalist through and through. And I often say that I don't think that I found journalism, but I think journalism found me. And so I would give my all to journalism again because of the very important role of journalism in shaping the world, in making democracy functional, in holding powerful people to account, in being the voice of the voiceless and helpless in the society. So for me, journalism is extremely important. After I left City FM in December 2008, I felt that it was time to do something on my own. And that was when I set up GhanaBusinessNews.com. And I actually started Ghana Business News before I quit my job. I started publishing on the 6th of December 2008. The very first article went out on the 9th of December 6, 2008.
And then it was on what was the subject? The voice of voiceless? Or something on economics?
No, I had done an article. Well, when I was studying at the University of Ghana as a third-year student, the Sociology Students Association of the university usually have the Sociology Students Week. And that week, in my year as a third-year student at the university, they decided that I should be the guest speaker. For the first time, a student was being a guest speaker at the Sociology Students Association Week at the University of Ghana. And my paper was on the future of university education, because we were talking about, at that time, there were discussions about fee paying. The university used to be free, but then government was talking about introducing fees in the university. So my paper was to look at the sociological implication of fee paying in the universities. And I think I delivered a very brilliant paper, and news went around the whole of campus. Everybody was like, did you hear about this student who gave a paper at the Sociology Students Association? It was a brilliant paper, and so on and so forth. So I also rewrote that paper into an article, and I published it on Ghana Business News, and it went viral. The following day after it's published, someone read that article and wrote me a very beautiful email to say the paper I wrote on education's future in Ghana so far as paying fees at the university was a very good paper, and he wrote to commend me. So I kept at it. Finally, I left City FM at the end of December 2008 and dedicated myself fully to Ghana Business News up to now. So I've been doing Ghana Business News now for more than 12 years.
So for more than 12 years, you are a managing editor, you are a businessman and a journalist.
Well, I'm not sure I'm a businessman yet because I don't have money.
But how Ghana Business News is working? What is your relation with the market? I mean, with advertisement actors. How to do to fulfill your mission and to have money to pay your employees, to pay yourself?
Well, making money with Ghana Business News has been one of the most difficult puzzles I have never been able to solve. Not that I didn't try. I tried everything possible in the books to try and generate revenue so I could expand as much as I could. But the model of Ghana Business News was to develop a very reliable news website that is credible, that is respectful and respected, and then attract advertising. But as it turned out, the advertising industry in Ghana is not what you think it is from outside. It's something else. So whereas a news website like Ghana Business News is attracting international organizations of repute, we are partners with Finance Afrique, your newspaper. We are partners with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, ICIJ. We are partners with Forbidden Stories, which is a big organization that works on journalists in trouble, or when a journalist dies, Forbidden Stories will go and finish the story you were doing before you died, or you got killed or jailed or fired from your job. Ghana Business News is a partner with the Center for Collaborative Investigative Journalism. Ghana Business News is a partner with Finance Uncovered in London, which is a very big financial journalism investigative organization. And they also train journalists from around the world in how to do financial investigations. We are partners with them and we work with them. In fact, Ghana Business News has received funding from the Money Trail program, which is funded by the Journalism Fund in Europe, to do cross-border investigations. So Ghana Business News has really a high value internationally. And of course, that's how I got to meet you, because I traveled quite frequently at the invitation of the African Union, but more importantly, at the invitation of the Africa Economic Commission. So we are really taken serious across the world. We do a lot of, great stories on Ghana in the country, but we don't seem to have attracted the kind of interest in Ghana as we have attracted internationally. I don't know if that is the reason why we are not getting advertising, or probably the reason why we are not getting advertising is because we have no friends and we have no enemies. Our only friend is the truth. So irrespective of who we have to write about, once our facts are factual, we write, irrespective of who. We don't kill stories at Ghana Business News, unless we have good reason to think that that's not a story in the public interest, and therefore we don't have to do it. But if it's a story that is in the public interest and will serve the bigger public interest, we will go ahead and do it. And so as a result, Ghana Business News does not generate revenue from advertising. And as such, I have to fund the running of Ghana Business News all by myself from my lunch money. I have to save some of my lunch money to pay for the cost of running the website. Occasionally, I get reporting grants, like Journalism Fund Europe. I get some grant from Senozo. I'm also a member of Senozo, the Norbert Zongo Center for Investigative Journalism, based in Ouagadougou. Occasionally, I get some funding from Free Press, Unlimited or so, to do some work. So wherever I can find a reporting grant and I have a good pitch, I will always pitch and then get the funding. And by the way, as a result of the work I do on Ghana Business News, I applied for one of the really, really top-notch journalism fellowships in the world, called the Night Budget Fellowship in Business and Economic Journalism at Columbia University in New York City. And I was selected in 2013. And that is a fellowship that is worth about $130,000, where your full fees are paid for one academic year, and you are giving as much as $55,000 in my time as living expenses. And you get to live in New York City and study for a master's degree in journalism. So I got to study for a master's in journalism. I had my first degree in the University of Ghana in sociology. And then, of course, I got the chance to do my master's in journalism. I did a Master of Science in journalism at Columbia University in New York. So while Ghana Business News has all these leverage, respectability internationally, in Ghana, I can say to you that I don't even get invited to national events. I don't even get accreditation for national events, even when I apply for them. It's hard to explain.
That's very, very strange from someone who was been in every field in African union conferences,
Yes.
economic commission. He was in
Yes.
Colombia. So I think we are living the same issues as Ghanaian or as a Senegalese journalist. I think up to now, for Africans, the journalism means with West.
Yes.
If you are African, you are not considered as a good journalist.
That's
Did
true.
you feel it also in Ghana?
Well, I will tell you this. I've come to a point where it doesn't matter to me what kind of journalist anybody thinks I am. I think my works speak for me. You may not like me as a journalist. You may even not like me as a person. But if you look at my work and you know what good...
You can judge.
Yes, you can judge my quality from the work I do as a journalist. And I do not think that there is anybody who knows what good quality journalism is who will look at the work I do and think that it is substandard. No, no. I mean, there is nobody who is familiar with my work, whether he likes me or does not like me, who would condemn the quality of journalism that I do. And having said that, when I came back from Colombia in 2014, the Colombia program was a one-year program. So from 2013 to 2014, 2 weeks after graduation, I bought my own ticket and came to Ghana, even though I also applied for a work permit and got issued with one. I didn't use it. I came back to Ghana. One of the things I wanted to do when I came to Ghana was to teach in some of the journalism schools. But unfortunately, they didn't seem interested. I tried several times to show interest. I sent my CVs to some of them. They never even called me back. So I thought, well, I think I have learned a lot about journalism. This is my 30th year, going to 31 years. I have quite some experience, and I would be happy to share those experiences with other young journalists to make them better. So I established a not-for-profit organization called News Bridge Africa. And in the last 5 years, it was registered in 2014, I have trained about 400 people in about 3-4 countries. I've done training in Ghana. In 2019, I trained about 114 journalists in 6 regions of Ghana. I was supposed to do more in 2020, but of course we had the pandemic, so we couldn't do that. I've trained the members of Parliament of the Gambia in communication skills and strategy. I did some training for civil society in Liberia in communication skills and strategy. I have trained the staff of African Development Bank in Ghana in communication skills and strategy as well, and media relations. I've done training for the managing directors of EcoBank in Accra and Lomé in media relations. I have done training for civil society organized by West Africa Civil Society Institute in Accra. I have done training for young journalists. I have taken interns that I have trained who have gone international. The last intern I took had worked with a radio station in Ghana for 5 years. And nobody could remember a single significant work that this young journalist had done. But she joined Ghana Business News for 1 year. And by the time she had finished, she got onto a fellowship in Nigeria for female journalists. And she won the first prize of a journalism award organized by something for a Mother Foundation that is funded by a pharmaceutical organization that, if I remember, I will tell you. I seem to have forgotten it right now. But they focus on fertility issues, and therefore they encourage journalists to write about fertility issues. And this young reporter wrote something on infertility in the Ga area of Gamashi. And it was a very good story, which I guided her to write, and I edited, and we published on Ghana Business News. And I saw the competition and asked her to enter, and she got to win the first prize. So the training I give to interns makes them come out really very well as very good journalists. Of course, they complain that the training is hard because I insist on things being done right. And usually they all leave and realize that I was giving them very good training. But while they are doing the training, they complain that I am too hard to work with, except they leave. They realize that I was teaching them the right things to do. So over the years, not only am I writing, I'm also training a lot of young journalists, and I also and do a lot of speaking engagements. I have spoken to first-year students at Northwestern University of Qatar. I have spoken to third-year students at the Ghana Institute of Journalism. I have spoken at seminars organized by Northwestern University. And only last week, I was the speaker at the Carter G. Woodson Institute for African American and African Studies at the University of Virginia. They have what they call the African Colloquium Series. And I was the first speaker the first African speaker to be speaking from Africa. They've had African speakers in the past, but they all lived in the US. And the audience was extremely impressed and grateful for my delivery and the issues I talked about. I did speak about the state of independent journalism in Ghana. So I don't just write as a journalist. I also do training. I do speaking engagements and things like that. And by the way, I am also a member of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, ICIJ. And only last week, I was selected to be a member of the network committee, the membership group within the committee within ICIJ that assesses the rules and regulations for becoming a member, that is responsible for disciplining members when they do anything that requires looking into, and also provide support for membership in times of crisis, and so on and so forth. So my journalism is not just about writing, but also advocacy. When journalists in Ghana are in trouble, I try to do something about it. When journalists around Africa are in trouble, I try to do something about it. Unless I haven't heard about it. Sometimes, I mean.
So it's a full engagement.
Yes, it is
passionate
full. Yes.
engagement, and I think you mean that journalism somewhere is a Robin Hood to defend the voiceless.
Yes.
And to try to transform the society, the way of doing politics, economics. So, Emmanuel, in 2021, you have in Ghana Business News something which is very, very, very difficult. Your office took fire. Can you come back on this detail, please?
Yes. The year 2020 itself has been a very difficult year for everybody, and more so for journalists, but even more so for journalists like me, who does not generate revenue from what we do and work purely out of passion and dedication and the love for our country, for Africa, for the world and humanity. And it was difficult for everyone, but it became even more difficult for me when on November 12th, my office caught fire. The building housing my office is a clinic. So I have this small office inside the clinic where I run the operations of Newsbridge Africa and Ghana Business News. And that day I didn't go to the office. Again, of course, because of the pandemic, I work a lot from home. I go to the office only when it is very necessary. And that week, I had just had a new reporter who wanted to work with me, and I wanted to give him the chance. So we started going to the office to try and get things organized and arranged. But that Thursday, I didn't go to the office. I was working from home, and I received a phone call that there was fire in the building. So I asked which building. I was told your office building. And the person who called me said, well, the fire hasn't reached the side of the building where your office is, and the fire service is already here. So I relaxed. In fact, I was having dinner at that time. In less than 5 minutes, my phone rang again. And this person said to me, the fire has reached your office. So I stopped having dinner. I got ready, hopped into the car, and rushed to the office. By the time I got there, the fire has largely been doused, but the entire building, from the roof, the ceiling, it's a 2-story building, has all carved in. The roofing sheet are falling in, the ceilings have fallen in, and the entire top and ground floors were burnt to ashes. It was a difficult sight. To lose everything I had in the office. There were 3 laptops in there, 2 printers, a scanner, furniture, lots and lots and lots of books and documents, archival material, camera equipment, accessories. Fortunately, I have 2 cameras. I had them at home at the time of the fire, but then some of the camera accessories were left in the office. So I lost everything. 12 years of my life and time with Ghana Business News completely burned down to ashes. I went back there on Friday, the following day, to assess the damage, hoping I could salvage something from the fire. But when I got there, there was nothing I could get out. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Everything was gone. I mean, there were about 3 recorders. I had a brand new H6 Zoom recorder that somebody who appreciated the quality of journalism I did gifted me. And I had Zoom H4 camera myself, which I'd been using from the beginning when I started the website. And then a Zoom H1, which I think had a little problem with, and I wanted to get it fixed. So I lost all these things. But as we say, once there is life, there is hope. I have decided to keep going. I kept running the website as I should, even though it's difficult, because I get flashes of things I've lost in the fire every now and then. And it can be emotionally draining sometimes, but I don't have a choice. I cannot get back anything I lost in the fire, except I need to energize myself and keep going, because there is still a lot more to do. And then, of course, less than a week ago, my website was attacked by people these are criminals, no 2 ways about that. There is a story about the betting industry in Kenya, and it's exposed all the corruption, the tax avoidance schemes, the addiction that young people in Kenya face. It's a thoroughly done investigative piece by our partners in London, Finance Uncovered, and the Daily Newspaper of Kenya. And because we are partners with Finance Uncovered, each time they do such wide-reaching stories in Africa, they do give us the permission to republish. And we have the express permission of Finance Uncovered to republish that story. And then these criminals impersonated the authors who wrote the articles. The articles were written by Lionel Fowle and Paul Wafula. Paul Wafula works for the Daily Nation, and Lionel Farr works for Finance Uncovered. And these criminals filed a DMCA takedown notice using the names of Lionel and Paul by creating fake Gmail accounts, pretending to be Lionel and Paul, whose copyrights we have infringed upon, and filed a DMCA takedown notice. Unfortunately, our hosting company, Digital Ocean, didn't do due diligence, and we wrote to them several times and said, look, the people making the complaints are not the rightful owners of the copyright. These are impersonators, and therefore they are even criminals by that singular act. Unfortunately, Digital Ocean didn't listen to me, and then they disrupted the website. I wasn't home that day. It was a Thursday evening. I came back home. I sat by my desk to do updates, only to realize that the website couldn't be accessed. I couldn't access my backend. I couldn't access the server as well. So the only thing left for me was to go on social media. So I went on social media and I made a flurry of posts on Facebook and tweeted really, really, really angrily, and tagged Digital Ocean and tagged press freedom organizations around the world. I think in about 2 hours after that, Digital Ocean probably felt the heat and decided to restore my website, but gave me 72 hours to take down the story without legitimate reason, except to say that they believe that the DMCA takedown notice was valid. I do not see why and how a DMCA notice made by impersonators can't be valid under any circumstance. Well, they made me take down the story and insisted that I file a counterclaim. So I got a lawyer who drafted the counterclaim for me. I filed it on Friday or Saturday, hoping that Digital Ocean will respond immediately. They didn't. They responded 5 days after that they have received my counterclaim. And I find that to be quite unfortunate, to say the least, for any hosting company to act in that manner. They took decision on an invalid, in my view, DMCA takedown. They have no business responding to criminals. And I made that clear to them, because Lionel and Paul both wrote, and we forwarded all the information to Digital Ocean. But why they still went ahead to take down my website, I still can't comprehend, because these people filing the DMCA takedown are criminals. They are not the real owners. So it's up to Digital Ocean to do its own investigations, which they did not do. There is nothing to show that they did any investigation. But probably they believe these people. I hope that they believe them genuinely, without any malice, and took that rather dastardly action against a legitimate journalism website that has over the years constantly remained professional and law-abiding. But of course, they have 10 days to respond, and I doubt they will. I will be surprised if they ever respond. And Finance Uncovered has written to Digital Ocean. They have asked for their comments, but Digital Ocean doesn't seem to have responded as at today. I am not aware if they have, which is equally unacceptable in an emergency situation that they themselves have created, because they didn't do due diligence to determine if the people making the copyright infringement claim are indeed the copyright owners. And I think as a hosting company, they have the duty to determine whether whoever is making a claim is indeed the right person to make a claim. You don't just act on a claim to say because somebody has made a claim, it is valid simply because it is a claim. A claim must come from the rightful owner of a copyright. And I think that is how the laws of natural justice works. But
Yes,
unfortunately,
this is, yes. This is, as they say, the risk of the job to be journalist.
Exactly.
But this demonstrates the importance of to have a real journalism, a journalism who is writing on the right issues. So, Emmanuel, it was a lessons of life hearing to you, starting from 2 cities job work as a cleaner to Colombia, and from there to Ghana Business News. And with
Yes.
all of the problem you live in last year and this year, you said one word: when there is life, there is hope. I think
Yes.
that is the last word, and the word that all the journalists in Africa need to go ahead and to try to be journalists, to remain journalists, the voice of the voiceless. It's not easy with the advertising market and with a lot of relations in politics and economic fields, but we have to keep our mission as the one of the best in our society. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your patience, and see you on the GhanaBusinessNews.com.
Thank you very much, Adamawa. It's been nice talking to you.
Nice to